Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
The president is exploring the mechanisms to remove security clearance because they've politicized and in some cases monetized their public service and security clearances.
What? Let's focus on that one phrase from White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders. No, you're not getting punked here. Monetize their public service. She was criticizing how past U.S. intelligence chiefs monetized their former roles for financial gain. So for facts' sake, let's see how much the Trump family is bringing in during its current public service. Let's start with Trump Properties. Donald Trump retains a stake in all of his companies, meaning just because he's not running things doesn't mean he's not profiting. President Trump has spent 174 days at a Trump-owned residence since taking office. And staying at his properties is not like George W. Bush staying at his Texas ranch. This one cost the taxpayers big, big bucks. The Secret Service has to pay for room and board at Trump Properties. The USA Today reports that the Secret Service has spent more than $137 grand in 2017 alone on, guess what? Golf carts. Golf carts protecting the president at his Mar-a-Lago and Bedminster properties. In fact, in his Scotland resort ahead of the Putin summit, taxpayers picked up the $77,000 tab. That is more money than many teachers make in some states. And back at Mar-a-Lago, the president's club doubled its membership fee to $200 grand after the president was elected, while his D.C. hotel raised its room rates by 60%. As Trump Hotels, the government of Qatar bought a $6.5 million apartment in Trump World Tower, a Trump property where Saudi Arabia, India, and Afghanistan already keep residences. And in Trump Tower here on Fifth Avenue, China's largest state-owned bank rents a $2 million a year space for its biggest office in the United States. And on sale at the Shenandoah National Parks Visitor Center, Trump Wine, whose vineyard is nearby in Charlottesville. Jared Kushner and his wife, first daughter Ivanka Trump, who both took positions in the White House, brought in anywhere between $82 million and $222 million last year, according to their financial disclosures. Ivanka, she pulled in nearly $4 million alone from her stake in the Trump International Hotel in D.C. Much of Jared's money came from his family ownership of apartment complexes in New Jersey and Maryland. And Ivanka's more than $5 million in profits from her clothing brand got a nice little boost from counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway, telling Fox News viewers from the White House briefing room, go buy Ivanka's stuff. A big monetization from the seat of public service. And I need to remind you, when the Trump family did an interview on 60 Minutes that night, Ivanka's own employees from her brand sent out a PR email telling us where we could get Ivanka's bracelet from her fine jewelry collection. Please, Sarah Sanders.
It is Wednesday, the 25th of July of 2018, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Hey, I'll show you a monetized public service right here. Can you believe this guy? And Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Baghdad Bob. I think there's some other personages down through history that might be more apt of a parallel with one Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Well, I always thought the term devil spawn was hyperbole, just sort of like a very histrionic descriptive term to rile. I never took it seriously. I mean, who does, right? And then you realize, these terminologies came out of actual occurrences. Otherwise, why else would they become so ingrained down through history and through, various cultures, by the way. And I'm beginning to believe. I am beginning to believe, brothers and sisters. Oh, yeah. We have among us the devil's spawn. And probably true. People say that, Donald Trump might be the Antichrist, so therefore it'll, hasten the end of the world, and then everybody can be yanked up into heaven, some by their top knots, and some not at all. I think it's going to happen a little differently. So before that happens, I figure rather than hasten it, we should, it's inevitable. Let's just presume it's inevitable. In that time between then and now, shouldn't we love each other, have fun, little wine parties, or if you're into beer, have both. I would say have both. Let everybody choose. And if you're going to be really egalitarian in the end days, you might as well have a full bar. And the French 77, the premier cocktail here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, would definitely be the cocktail of choice in the end times. Oh, yeah. Well, what else? Donald Trump wants to change. He's doing the George Orwell thing. 2 + 2 is 5. We, the party, tell you what is reality. We control the knobs that turn, the planet into a soft blur or into crystal clarity. Yeah, he's in the outer limits, all right. Yeah, I don't know. What's that place called between the Twilight Zone and the outer limits? Donald Trump's brain. I'll be here all week. Indeed. There's so much news going on, I had to just stop it. And let's look at what we're going to deal with today. Well, Stephanie Ruhle did give a very concise assessment of, monetizing and politicizing the presidency. I'll show you monetized public service. Well, on the rest of the menu, in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. A Karl Rove-linked dark money group. Remember him? I don't know. Maybe he's trying to make, a comeback. I can't let some, fly-by-night Russian propaganda shop take over America. I've been working hard on this myself. Let's hope he doesn't leak up. Well, that group smears Democratic Senator Heidi Heitkamp while praising Republican Senator Dean Heller. Well, what's wrong with that? Well, because they both cast the exact same vote. I think that's called speaking out of both sides of your mouth. An ICE-contracted private prison company made an illegal donation to GOP Governor Rick Scott's super PAC. Well, why not? And the altered Pentagon climate change report. The White House likes to alter everything. We'll just take out climate change. That altered Pentagon climate change report spurs unusual bipartisan action from Congress. And that was before news came out that Trump altered the transcripts of the Helsinki summit meeting. Right there for the whole world to see. It's all altered. American amnesia. We'll make sure you have it. After the break, we then move to the chef's table where GOP Senator Richard Burr confirms Devin Nunes FISA conspiracy theory is not based in reality. Of course not. It runs in the family, and we know what they mean by family. Speaking of which, Trump has claimed 6 times, 6, in just the last year alone, that the F-35 stealth plane is literally invisible to the human eye. And he won't stop. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Go to the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. You'll notice to the rightish of the page there the chat room link monitored by our roaring girl, Kelly Lincoln, who is going to Netroots Nation in New Orleans. And if you would, because to the leftish of the chat room link are the donate contribute buttons that may or may not be working at this very moment. But if you would go to links that will support Kelly so that she can maybe have lunch, dinner, and possibly breakfast while she's at Netroots Nation, that would be greatly appreciated. And if you would just put those efforts towards her for that, it would that would be nice. So thank you for your generosity, and we'll get our regular donate contribute buttons linked up in their proper alignment. And until then, if you would help Kelly, that would be grand. You can follow Netroots Radio on Twitter at Netroots Radio. How easy is that? Even on Facebook, you can follow it on Facebook at Netroots Radio. Wow, crazy. Follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. Pretty easy. You can also and should check out the show notes and links diary that I post on Daily Co's about 10 minutes before showtime. And those are integral parts to this holistic approach to whatever it is that we're doing. Do that. You can follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West. And also on Facebook at West Coast Cookbook. And podcasts of the show can be had by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn. I got to check about Apple Podcasts. I don't know. I got to figure that one out. And but really, wherever fine podcasts can be found. All right, this first article here is by Josh Israel out of Think Progress. And it does occur to me that, we haven't really heard much from Karl Rove lately, but he's been working. He's a little worker bee, and he's still pumping out his little right-wing altered reality rags and disinformation campaigns for, local right-wing conservatives that they can mold in their own image to, I don't know, deconstruct the administrative state. What was Karl Rove's ambition? Just pure, unadulterated power? Is that it? I don't know. Did he want to turn everything over to the Russians? And he's saying, hey, Vlad, I can do it better. This, who knows? This may be part of a campaign to, get some of that oligarch money pumped his way. You never know. And so what he's doing is that he's doing the old talking out of two sides of their mouth campaign, in which he is doing work for various mostly Southern, not necessarily, no, I guess not, but obviously, fringe candidates of little or average ability to prevail in their districts because they're in tough districts, I guess. Is Dean Heller in a tough district? I don't know. I think the Nevada is going to go more blue. I might be wrong. Heidi Heitkamp of North Dakota, she's being attacked by Rove's group for voting against billions of dollars in funding for the Department of Veterans Affairs. Of course, what she did was the same thing that Dean Heller did, because they've been running television ads, radio, and online support for Heller, praising him for his heroic work in support of veterans. But the ads in both cases neglect to mention that he too twice voted against the 2016 appropriation. And how is that possible? Well, because they were voting on a continuing resolution, which is a little different than actually taking money from veterans' pockets. But his group, Crossroads GPS, American Crossroads, and now this one, One Nation. One Nation. One Nation. What a gee. That's a scary. Just the intonation of it is frightening to me, especially coming from a Karl Rove. Remember when he said, we make our own reality, and while you're dealing with our reality, we're on to making other realities? Told you there was a precedent for this. Told you. Okay, so they did last week abort a $750 campaign attacking Manchin for being weak on immigration. But that spot is still on the group's YouTube page, and it criticized him for voting for a 2013 bipartisan comprehensive immigration reform bill as a vote for amnesty for illegal immigrants. But at the time, their guy that they're backing, Stephen Law, actively campaigned for similar legislation supporting a permanent legal status for undocumented immigrants after they paid a fine. And he is being lauded by Rove's group as a hero. Interesting how that works. Don't believe what you see and hear. He said that in front of a bunch of veterans who, I don't know, some cheered. The Veterans of Foreign Wars did come out and pretty much say, we love the press. That's who we fight for. Rebecca Intralgo brings us this next offering here at the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Hey, did you know that Rick Scott, currently, he's the governor and he's running for U.S. Senate, that his state has one of the largest ICE detention centers in the nation? Huh. I think there's a lot of money to be had there to I don't know, withhold services so you can make even more money. The largest private prison company in the nation may have made an illegal donation to New Republican PAC, a super PAC supporting Florida Governor Rick Scott's campaign for the Senate. And that's according to an investigative report by MapLight in collaboration with the Florida Center for Investigative Reporting. Obviously, commie socialists, they're trying to get to the truth. How dare they? In April, the Boca Raton-based Geo Group, them, donated $125,000 to New Republican PAC through a company subsidiary. Once you start laundering money, I think you might have actual knowledge you're doing something wrong. I'm so over these people that espouse law and order. The law and order as they see fit. as an authoritarian would impose law and order. My law, my order. Not preserving the law and the order, but making it. Everywhere I've read, that's not really conducive to a healthy representative democratic republic. So, Craig Holman, an ethics advocate at Public Citizen, told MapLight in my book, this is a violation of the pay-to-play law. You can't let subsidiaries get around what is illegal for a parent company to do. Otherwise, you just essentially throw the law out. Exactly. Well, the law. It's just one of those contractual niceties, Come on. Get it out of the way. Quaint. It's quaint. GEO Group operates 141 prisons in the country and is the biggest contractor of U.S. immigration enforcement with $471 million, nearly half of the $1 billion in federalized contracts. Some of the largest and most dangerous ICE detention centers are operated by GEO. The facility outside of Los Angeles, Adelanto Detention Center, was named the deadliest ICE detention center of 2017 after a third immigrant died in the facility's custody in 2017. Adelanto is notorious for its substandard medical care. Well, look, if you're getting $500 million from the government, you got to make that $1 billion somehow, right? You withhold services so you make more money. That's how private enterprise works. The American Civil Liberties Union has accused the organization of torturing detainees in Arizona. According to the filing, Iraqi nationals who joined the ACLU's class action lawsuit to stop their deportation were repeatedly denied food, water, and even access to the restroom. Well, I don't know. Maybe they were just going through one of those Werner Erhard seminars on the weekends where you can't go to the bathroom until they tell you to, because going to the bathroom is a form of avoidance, don't you know? You just don't want to hear what you're supposed to hear, and you're going to go to the bathroom to keep from hearing it. You stay seated right there, mister. Or miss, depending on the... Despite Scott's previous comments that I absolutely do not agree with the practice of separating children from their families, GEO runs the Broward Transition Center in the very state Scott is running to represent in the Senate. I just didn't know. As Think Progress has reported previously, the Broward Detention Center is a low-level facility for immigrants who have committed no crimes at all, or maybe a minor crime like a traffic offense. And some of those traffic offenses are simply not getting to the meter on time. Let me see your papers, you scofflaw. A mother of 3 is currently detained at the facility after having voluntarily paid a traffic ticket. She was held in the jail even after paying a $750 bond until ICE agents came to transport her to the ICE facility. Another mother was detained in Broward after checking in with ICE agents about her valid work visa. We don't want brown people in here anymore. We're just doing our jobs. And we love our jobs. Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, is another article out of Think Progress, this time by E.A. Crunden. More than 40 lawmakers have penned a letter to Secretary of Defense James Mattis requesting both that mentions of climate change and military reports remain intact and that strategic defense plans acknowledge the effects of climate change on national security. In a letter quietly released last week, a bipartisan group of representatives quietly did it. The Democrats would have announced it, but the Republicans can't because they've told their base that all that flooding and all those forest fires and the forest fires in the Arctic, normal. All right, so they had to do this quietly. Called on Mattis to take immediate action to preserve climate change reporting and national security plans. Pointing to a May report from the Washington Post, lawmakers expressed concerns over revelations that the Pentagon had revised an Obama-era report to remove references to climate change. While we appreciate the need to update reports when it is appropriate and necessary, we are disturbed that the revisions may have intentionally targeted mentions of climate change, reads the letter dated July 16th. The facts are clear. Climate change poses a threat to the department and the nation. The letter includes signatures from Republican members of the Climate Solutions Caucus. And actually, you know what? There is a list, a voluminous list of the signees, the signatories on this. And do go to the show notes and links diary that I post on Daily Co's, and or on any of the social media platforms in which which you'll find the show being announced. Go to those links and you'll read this article in full and see all of the various bipartisan agreement here, quiet as it may be. The Post found that a Defense Department report submitted to Congress in January differed from a previous draft in December 2016 version that emphasized climate change. The submitted version of the report removed multiple references to the threat that climate impacts, including sea level rise, which sea level rise posed to military sites and bases around the world. In some areas, allusions to human-driven climate change were altered to simply reference extreme weather or climate as a standalone word. You know, the White House actually took the video of the Helsinki summit and snipped it and altered it and edited it down so that you didn't know there was a question about whether Vlad wanted and actually took part in active measures to get Trump elected. Made it sound like the question came about from the previous question, a follow-up to the previous question, in which you heard the last part of that answer. And then I can't remember who asked the question, not Jonathan Karl, but whoever asked that question, who said, did you want Trump to win, and did you work to have that happen? Did you have your operatives work to have that happen? And Trump and Putin said, yes, I did, on both counts. All that was snipped out. And so this is actually a practice that they've done in other departments too. They've done it in the EPA. Here they're doing it in the Defense Department. Now, of course, the Defense Department is tasked with making sure we're safe no matter, what. Politics have nothing to do with this. If a tree is falling on your head, you can't just say, oh, well, that tree's not really going to fall on your head because I say so. But lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are concerned that such actions may imperil national security. Through the 2018 National Defense Authorization Act, Congress acknowledged climate change as a serious security threat and mandated a report on the top 10 most at-risk military bases and how to protect them. The July 16 letter accordingly asked the final report be delivered in compliance with the mandate laid out by the NDAA. So then there's a signatory to the letter, and they are quite a few. Okay, Defense Secretary Mattis has previously acknowledged the threats posed by climate change and pushed for sustainable adaptation measures where feasible. The Defense Department has yet to publicly respond to lawmakers regarding the letter sent last week. Well, I think they got some other matters on their hands. Like, are we going to fight for Russia and Syria now? Is that what we're doing now? They got a lot on their plate. I think they're going to get to this real quick. We need to get to our break, and we're going to do that. So we'll meet you on the other side, and we'll give you weather from around the world, and we'll finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. We will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, Leaves More Than a Trace. Taking its name from the outdoor conservation movement, the new film from Winter's Bone director Deborah Granick, Leaves No Trace, is several kinds of movie. It's a father-daughter love story. It's a piece on homelessness, one about PTSD-affected veterans, and it's a coming-of-age story. As the movie opens, we meet Will and daughter, Ben Foster and New Zealand newcomer Thomasin McKenzie, in and around their camp in the woods near Portland, Oregon. It's soon clear that they're not campers or weekend survivalists. They live there. Later in the film, when a social worker tells Tom that Will was required to provide a home for her, she answers without hesitation, he did. The two come to town only for Will to pick up supplies, which they pay for with the proceeds from him selling meds he's gotten from the VA. Their biggest fear is discovery, for which they even hold drills. Despite that, though, they are eventually discovered, briefly separated, and then placed in a modest dwelling on a Christmas tree farm where Will works to pay the rent. While Tom's socialization proceeds, Will is tormented by it, and eventually takes Tom and heads back out on the road to Washington State, where he's seriously injured but then nursed back to health by the inhabitants of a curious backwoods RV community. It's here, before the inevitable, if not totally conclusive conclusion, that Tom tells her dad, "The same thing that's wrong with you isn't wrong with me." Granick is telling an understated but powerful story here, with every sidebar and every frame, especially the long close-ups on Foster's and Mackenzie's faces, advancing the narrative or its ambience. Oscar will remember this one, avoid the post-nomination lines, and catch Leaves No Trace now. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at Take2MovieReview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christopher Intagliata. We have pretty good dental hygiene today. Regular brushing, flossing, dental visits. But thousands of years ago, not so much. Which means the old-timers' teeth had a lot of plaque. And today that ancient tartar is a gold mine for archaeologists.
What that's doing is it's basically entombing all this kind of biomolecular information that comes from your mouth.
Jessica Hendy, an archaeological scientist with the Max Planck Institute in Germany. Hendy and her team use dental scrapers, just like your dentist uses, to remove tartar from human teeth found in Great Britain, dating from the 8th century BC, the Iron Age, all the way to the 1800s, with some modern samples thrown in as a metric. They extracted proteins from the dental scrapings and then used mass spectrometry to reconstruct the menu. Across the ages were the remains of dairy products.
As well as milk, we've found evidence of cereals, specifically oats, and we find evidence of peas, and also evidence of something in the cabbage family.
The full bill of fare is in the Proceedings of the Royal Society B. The study shows that probing proteins in tartar can help figure out ancient diets, especially for foods that themselves don't preserve well. And though good oral hygiene is extremely important, if you forget to floss tonight, future archaeologists may thank you. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Pools, water parks, and other recreational water venues are popular places to relax and stay cool, but they can be sources of serious illness. Since 2000, nearly 500 outbreaks have been reported at recreational water venues in the U.S., resulting in over 27,000 illnesses and 8 deaths. Most were caused by parasites, bacteria, viruses, or certain chemicals in the water. Parents with young children who have diarrhea should not allow their children to swim or play in the water. In addition, bathers should check the inspection scores of pools and water parks and can conduct mini inspections using test strips before getting in the water. A few simple precautions can allow you to share the fun, not the germs. Thank you for joining us on A Minute of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Welcome to 60 Second Civics, the daily podcast of the Center for Civic Education. I'm Mark Gage. Alexander Hamilton, John Jay, and William Livingston were outspoken opponents of slavery and were founding members of the New York Society for Promoting the Manumission of Slaves. The word manumission means to release from slavery. Founded on January 25, 1785, the Society's members were outraged by the rampant kidnapping of free blacks on New York streets, who were then sold into slavery. The New York Manumission Society, as it was known for short, conducted a wide-ranging campaign against slavery. It held lectures, distributed essays, and established a registry to prevent free blacks from being dragged back into slavery. The New York Manumission Society also set up the African Free School to teach black students. Older boys were taught carpentry and navigation. Older girls were taught dressmaking and embroidery. The Society's minutes make clear that Hamilton, Jay, and others were more than just celebrities lending their names and prestige to a worthy cause. They formed a committee that signed petitions and lobbied the New York State Legislature to end the slave trade. They called it a practice so repugnant to humanity and so inconsistent with the liberty and justice which should distinguish a free and enlightened people. That's all for today's podcast, 60 Second Civics, where civic education only takes a minute.
You can help stop the Trump agenda in its tracks. Make sure you're registered to vote. Go to rockthevote.org. And on November 6th, vote for Democrats up and down the ticket. This message, a public service from all the fine people of netrootsradio.com.
This is Solidarity News on Radio Labour.
I'm Mark Belanger. The world of work is changing dramatically, with some saying that we are headed into a so-called gig economy, where people make a living by taking small jobs here and there. The result could be greater inequality in society and people losing out on social protection programs such as decent pensions. But, according to the International Labour Organization, the ILO, it doesn't have to be that way. Here is Guy Ryder speaking to the Center of Strategic and International Studies in Washington. Mr. Ryder is the Director General of the ILO. He is the first unionist to hold the position in the organization's 99-year history.
We feel, all of us feel, do we not, that the world of work is undergoing extraordinary transformative change. Change of a rapidity, change on a scale, it's global, and change of a profundity which we have to get a grip of. I think we all think that the world of work tomorrow is going to look substantially different from what it is today, and we have to prepare for that. We have to understand it, and we have to prepare for it. The second reason is, and I realize this is a subjective assessment, but I think many people think that the world of work is moving in the wrong direction, not the right direction, in the sense that we see growing inequality in our societies, and much of that inequality is incubated in what happens in the world of work. We are worried, in the most extreme form, this takes the form of the thesis that there's an end to work, that technology is going to render work redundant. Now, that sounds great. Wouldn't you like to have your 2-day weekend extended to 7 days? Now, I don't subscribe to the end of work thesis, but I think what we can expect is that work is going to be it's not going to disappear. It's not necessarily going to become permanently and chronically scarce, but it's going to be very, very different. It's going to be performed in ways which it was not performed in the past. I made the reference to the 5-day week, the weekend, etc. Is the employment relationship where you, as an employee, have a permanent, recognizable employer whose door you can knock on? I wonder if that's going to be. How many of us are going to be working in the gig economy? To what extent are labor contracts going to be substituted by purely commercial contracts? I want you to work for me for 2 days to deliver this product. Here's the money. That's not a labor contract, it's a commercial contract. And technology can facilitate work being done anytime, anywhere, and that changes everything. There's a big debate, Dan, about is this, the gig economy which is appearing, is this just a niche that will remain a niche in the world of work, or is it a precursor of what is going to become general in the future? And, there's an interesting sort of lesson in all of this. We can look at technological innovation, and here is the point I want to make strongly. With the very same technologies, and I'm thinking of the types of digital technologies which are becoming more and more present, we could create a future of work which liberates us, which gives us extraordinary opportunity to choose how we want to work, when we want to work, to reconcile our work responsibilities with private responsibilities. It could do all of those things. But at the same time, and here I quote Chancellor Merkel of Germany, it could lead to the creation of new generations of 21st century digital day labourers. It could make us work like dock workers used to work, queuing up on the dockside for a day's work, like rural workers used to queue up in the market square for a day's work. If the gig economy is to produce that, we're going the wrong way. But it could do the other thing. So here's my point. There is no future of work waiting to receive us. The future of work is what we will make of it. So it's not the result of robots, technology. It's what people like yourselves decide you want your future to be, and our capacity to convince and influence policymakers to go there.
And that's it. International labor news you can use. You can find more labor news on our website at www.radiolabor.net. Thank you for listening. And remember, it's all about global solidarity.
From UN headquarters in New York, I'm Luke Vargas with your World in 2 minutes. Head to the websites of Delta, American Airlines, or United today and try and buy a trip to Taipei, the capital of Taiwan. As of press time, each U.S. carrier lists the city as a part of TW, a country code that suggests Taiwan is an independent state. Taiwan calls itself the Republic of China and maintains China has been illegitimately run by communists since Mao Zedong's rise to power in the 1940s. Officials in Beijing disagree and say the People's Republic of China rightfully governs both the mainland and Taiwan. But the days in which foreign companies can make political statements on that issue and pay no financial price could be over, as airlines face a Wednesday deadline to adopt Beijing's party line or potentially lose access to the Chinese market altogether. According to Reuters, the U.S. airlines that still list Taiwan as independent are prepared to concede the issue. To imagine what that will look like, head to aircanada.com, where Taiwan's international airport is listed as a part of CN, China's country code. And strong-arming airlines is just one part Beijing's strategy to diplomatically isolate Taiwan.
No important country in the world recognizes Taiwan or the Republic of China.
That's Dennis Hickey, Distinguished Professor of Political Science at Missouri State University, who says even more peripheral countries like Paraguay that do recognize Taiwan are facing the squeeze.
They are also pressuring governments that do not have formal diplomatic relations with Taiwan to downgrade their unofficial ties and change the names of their unofficial embassies or consulates. What they appear to be doing is slowly taking a few every once in a while, sort of death by 1,000 cuts.
The thinking goes that scrubbing mention of Taiwan from diplomatic buildings or airline websites will hasten the day the island is under Beijing's full control once again. Luke Vargas, The United Nations. you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Smothered Benedict Wednesdays, by the way. Oh, yeah. It's not just an egg dish with hollandaise. It's much, much more. Oh, wow. It's been really hot here. And we've been having a lot of forest fires and grass fires. And if I happen to sneeze in the midst of this, I'll try to mute. I will really try. But the best I can hope for is really just to turn my head in time. Okay. I always hate that tickle once I start trying to speak. Yes, we'll be much warmer. Currently here along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America as we start. Weather from around the world, by the way. It is currently 64 degrees. We're going to be a tad warmer. They're saying 103. Well, we were 103 yesterday, so my experience will be 105 to 107. Ouch. And then we're supposed to be around that same temperature tomorrow. Though the nights, last night was in the low 60s. They're slated to be in the upper 60s now for the low overnight. And boy, that could be oppressive to some. Especially if you can't open up the windows because it is so smoky out there. And if my voice seems a little scratchy, it is. It doesn't only seem like it, it actually is. Oh, my, because there's, oh, God. I hope it's not poison oak that's burning up. And you know that it is. You know that it is. And this is scary. Oh, maybe this should be the time I should note that I may have to get my elderly mom out of this area for a couple of days and head to the coast. Or as some people like to say, the coast. The coast. The coast. Head to the coast. Hopefully where like an onshore breeze keeps all the smoke away. But then the smoke could just follow you to the coast and linger there. Right offshore, blowing in and out, just where you are. But we may have to hightail it out here. And we'll figure a way for, the station to continue on. It'll be on a weekend. Everything will be programmed for you. I assure you. Okay, so as I said, we're going to have some fairly dry conditions. Just enough so that, the forest fires will, keep going on. Winds right now are out of the southwest about 1 mile per hour. They will shift to their usual 5 to 10 miles per hour, but out of the northwest. And then shifting again at the same clip out of the northwest. And fan the flames, as they say. Fan the flames. Oh, boy. Grass pollen remains moderate. The air quality index is unhealthy for sensitive groups, though it was at 160. It's now at 144 parts per million. Wear a mask. So that's why I'm telling everybody that I may have to get my mom out of here. I might have to get me too. I can't live like this. This is almost as bad as when all the mills were running too. My Oregon memories of childhood. You'd have grass fires and forest fires, and they had to run the mills too. Not all the time, but still. Oh, and running the mills meant that they would burn stinky stuff. And if there was an inversion layer, yeah, you know what an inversion layer is. All that stinky mill burned stuff would hover and saturate the whole valley, and people could hardly breathe. Daytime UV index is now up at 9, so let's see. Oh, that's why, because high pressure is dominating, of course, the region right now at 30.202 inches, but visibility is up to 7 miles from 3 miles, so that's letting in the carcinogenic part of the sun. Just enough. Okay, right now humidity is at 58%, and it should be going down to around 30, though I don't know, maybe not. I have to look at that. We'll look at our gauges and see what the averages will be on that end. Okay, weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. I forgot to mention the area here in the southern Oregon part of the United States. We are under an active heat advisory. Not just for sensitive groups either, all groups. All right, right now, London is 85 degrees and sunny. Paris is 91 and sunny. They have a heat advisory also. Get out of Rome. You don't stay in Rome. Or, I mean, get out of Paris. You don't stay in Paris at this time of year. Rome is 92 and fair. Ooh. Kiev is 71 degrees with a light rain and thunder. Kabul is 86 degrees with blowing dust and wind. Huh. Good for them. Hong Kong is 79 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 80 degrees and mostly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 55 degrees and clear. San Francisco, California is 55 degrees and partly cloudy. And New York is 75 degrees Fahrenheit and cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Dale of Think Progress brings us this first offering here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. With the recent public disclosure of documents related to the 26 FISA warrant filed against Carter Page has reignited conservative conspiracy theories about Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation. Even though the documents reveal that Republicans like Representative Devin Nunes lied about the origins of the Russia probe in their infamous memo, conservatives have been quick to claim validation. Just lie. Big lie. The bigger the lie, the better. Small lies, no one will believe them. A big lie, it's so outlandish they have to believe it. Okay? Steal a little, they throw you in jail. Steal a lot, and they make you king. Thank you, Bob. One of the key allegations in the Nunes memo that the California Republican has continued to repeat is abuse of the FISA process. According to Nunes, the FBI misled the FISA court in order to surveil Page and ultimately investigate the Trump campaign's connections to Russia. Nunes' counterpart in the Senate, though, Senate Intelligence Committee Chairman Richard Burr of North Carolina, sees it quite differently. Burr, whose committee agreed with the U.S. Intelligence Committee that Russia's election interference was intended to help Trump, indicated there was nothing improper about how the Justice Department obtained its FISA warrant of Page when he was asked about it on Tuesday. There were sound reasons as to why judges issued the FISA, Burr told CNN. Burr also expressed concern about the recent release of the documents, which were spearheaded by Nunes. I cease to be amazed by how much stuff we release publicly now, he said. It's almost like a Russian plot, isn't it? Jeez. For his part, Nunes refused to answer questions and criticized CNN when a reporter for the network asked about the discrepancies between his previous claims about the abuse of the FISA process and what was revealed by the documents. Undeterred by his latest embarrassment, Nunes now claims his allegations of FISA abuse will be vindicated if redactions are removed from the documents. You know, the sort of redactions that say, yeah, this spy was right there sitting next to Putin. We need to know who he is so we can tell not only Don, but the rest of the world. So somebody might, conveniently, convenient. Very, very convenient. Well, they're already working the refs, they being, their side. with this charge that, what you see is not what you see. And if this landslide of Democrats take over, the government in the midterms, it's all a Russian plot then. It's the Russians that help the Democrats, and then people will be going to jail. The gulags will be opened. And it won't just be brown and black babies ripped from their mother's arms.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
Aaron Rupert from Think Progress brings us this last offering at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Oh, my God. During a speech to a veteran of foreign wars gathering in Kansas City last night, Trump bragged about the fact that the military is ordering 147 new stealth planes and indicated he thinks they are literally invisible. This is an incredible plane. It's stealth. You can't see it. So when I talk to even people from the other side, they're trying to order our plane. They like the fact you can't see it. I said, how would it do in battle with your plane? They say, well, we have one problem. We can't see your plane. That's the big problem. There's just one problem. Despite what Trump says, stealth planes are not literally invisible. Stealth refers to the capabilities the planes have to avoid detection. But the planes are still discernible to the naked eye. In fact, a photo of one of them is at the top of the post here that Mr. Rupert has on his article. So go to the links that I have and you'll be able to see it. You can actually see it. I'm sure you've seen a stealth plane before. I mean, come on. Nonetheless, Trump has repeatedly indicated that he thinks stealth planes are literally invisible, including 3 times in the last week alone. Most recently, during a White House event on Monday, Trump touted that there's an F-35 stealth fighter on the South Lawn. It's special. Can't see it. Somebody said, oh, yeah, it's right out there right now. You can't see it, can you? That's how stealthy it is. Oh, my God. This is the guy we have. And he got to sit alone with Vlad and say, oh, yeah, we'll help you out with the Syrians. You tell us what to do, we'll do it. Okay, well, this is where we are. During a speech to members of the Coast Guard last November, Trump characterized the F-35 as almost, like an invisible fighter. And then said, he heard from Air Force guys, well, sir, you can't see it. It wins every time because the enemy can't see it, even if it's right next to, and I can't see it. The Emperor has no F-35. Okay, you got to wear it right. Then you'll see it. Trump's stubborn false belief that stealth planes are invisible is just one example of many that could be cited. Trump has repeatedly insisted, including as recently as Monday, that former President Franklin Delano Roosevelt served 16 years in office. But that's not the case. Roosevelt served just over 12 before he passed away in 1945. Trump's also repeatedly claimed that he did something Ronald Reagan was unable to do in 1984, and that was win Wisconsin. One of the states we won, Wisconsin, I didn't even realize this until fairly recently, that was one of the states Ronald Reagan didn't win when he ran the board. Well, Reagan, however, actually won Wisconsin in 1984. The state Trump has in mind is Minnesota, but to date, nobody has been able to correct him. Wisconsin, Minnesota, they're all the same, aren't they? All right, well, that does bring us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. And Netroots Radio, of course, broadcasts on for breaking news. We'll visit with you tomorrow for Metro City Shrimp and Grits. That's indeed what we will do. So continue listening to Netroots Radio for all that breaking news, and we'll visit with you tomorrow in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.